Hey guys, it's Stephen Freeborn here from freeborntrainingsystems.com, and real quick, I wanted to take a minute and answer a question that a lot of clients I've worked with currently and in the past have had, and which probably means that a lot of people have. So the question is whether to, when you get started with, well, I should preface this by saying the people I work with are mostly general population people, meaning their main goals when they start a training program or a diet is really to improve their physique. And for most, that basically is defined as being leaner, appearing more muscular, and then their kind of secondary goals are to be stronger, be more mobile, and continue to do the things they enjoy as long as they'd like to do them. So the question a lot of the times is, well, to improve my physique, should I be focusing on getting more muscle, or should I be focusing on losing fat? And it tends to be that women always err for the lose fat and the guys always err for the gain muscle. And while it's true that you can make lean gains, and particularly in my experience, that's for people who are relatively new to training, dieting, eating adequate amounts of protein, and this, in particular for women, I find that over time, the ability to do body recomposition where you're actually, losing fat while gaining muscle is less and less the more experience you get. So, and the reason for that being is that fat loss is maximized in a calorie deficit, meaning you're expending more energy than you're taking in, versus muscle mass is maximized while you're in a calorie surplus. So you're taking in more calories than you're expending. And ideally in each situation, if you're in a calorie surplus, you're in the smallest surplus that allows you to lose fat. And if you're in a muscle mass gaining period, you're eating just enough calorie surplus to allow you to gain weight and hopefully gain muscle, doing all the other things you need to do in each scenario to make that happen. So you kind of do need to pick which one you're going to go after so that you can set up your nutrition to align with your training and set up your training to align with your nutrition. And in my experience, most people, women and men, I always recommend starting with losing fat, trying to get leaner. Most people, the average person has, more than 20% body fat on them. If you're somebody who can see, you're lucky enough to have the visible abs and the six-pack, you're probably closer to 10%. And if you're someone who's kind of, semi-fit, semi-lifts, sticks to a pretty adequate diet, then you're probably somewhere between 10 and 20, which is kind of where I hang out most of the time. But most people, the physique they desire is closer to the 10%, and most people probably are happiest hanging out between 10 and 20. Most people are above 20. So for most people, I recommend starting with seeing how lean you can get, or at what point of leanness are you happy with the way you look. For most people, I've found that if they can get some body fat off their body, they actually look quite a bit more muscular, and they're actually pretty happy with the physique they had. They just needed to kind of reveal it by shedding some of those excess fat or excess pounds of fat. And then that also will allow you, once you get to a certain leanness that you're happy with, you can decide whether or not you feel like you would like to go after more muscle, or if you even need to take that on, because it can be a difficult process to do that. It requires a lot of discipline and dedication and establishing a ton of new habits that are kind of different than the habits you would have established to lose fat successfully, say. So for most people, I usually recommend guys and girls start with fat loss. More than likely for most women, they get enough fat off their body. They're probably pretty happy with their physique. They don't even need to consider the whole muscle mass phase. Most women will actually go through a little period of body recomp like I talked about at the beginning, and then they'll be happy to just get those excess pounds off and keep them off, and they'll feel great. Dudes, on the other hand, it's a little different story. they usually get a little bit leaner and decide, okay, now I'd like to transition to some muscle mass, which I think is great, and I think it's also much more successful in that order. I find that men getting lean first allows them to gain muscle with greater ease. And I don't have data to back this up, but I think theoretically, in my opinion, I think allowing them to get leaner improves their metabolic health, which in turn allows them to build muscle with greater ease. It's still difficult, but they still have to put in work, but it comes easier. It comes a little bit more naturally, so to speak. So I hope this answers a really kind of important question I think a lot of people deal with when they're first starting out, and even as they transition from that beginner stage to the more intermediate stage where they actually get some defined goals. So if you guys have enjoyed this video, please share it with other people who may have this question and they can get an answer. If you're liking my videos, please subscribe to my channel. And if you guys want to talk about more individual situations, because I know everybody's different and everybody has different goals, please don't hesitate to reach out, comment below, send me an email, find me on social media, steven.freeborn, and pose me your questions and let me know what's going on with you, and I'd be happy to give you my advice and my input on maybe how I would structure your focuses over, say, a 6-month period or a year to kind of tailor with your priorities, your lifestyle, and your goals. So don't be afraid to reach out. I'm happy to help. So, of course, I'll be back with more. But until then, I hope you guys are having a great day, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.